Again, still on the mental component, the mental side of things, I just threw this little story in. This is a story I read in a book of stories, and it was about a particular Indian village where every now and again the elder chief would gather all the children of the village together, and he would impart a little bit of his wisdom, a little bit of the knowledge he had built up over his considerable time on the planet. And he always liked to challenge them a little bit in what he presented to them, but he also kept it very brief, knowing that children don't have a huge span of attention. And on this occasion, he said to them, he said, inside each and every one of you, sitting there listening to me here now, inside every one of you, there's a battle being waged between two factions. He said, one faction is made up of love, joy, confidence, fun, forgiveness, spontaneity, creativity, optimism. That's on the one side. And then he said on the other side, in the other faction, you have things like hate, anxiety, fear, envy, jealousy, misery, anger, complaining, and aggression. So you have both of these sides inside each and every person, battling out, fighting that battle. And eventually then one of the children, thinking about it, asked a question. He said, but which faction will win? To which the elder chief replied, the one you feed the most. So you have to be asking yourself the question in relation to these will be going on inside each and every one of you. I think it's obvious that this is the faction you want to win or to succeed. So you have to be questioning then, well, what are the sort of things that I can be actively doing to actually feed this faction so that it does win out most of the time. Not all of the time, but most of the time, so that I do experience a high level of subjective well-being. Now, I want to talk a little bit about emotions, and in particular the importance of being able to express emotion, because long-term suppression of negative emotions does have a significant impact on your health. And it's difficult to it's a difficult one to demonstrate. So I've opted for this. If you can imagine this as being a human being, it's a bottle of carbonated water of some kind, right? So inside you have that gas. It's carbon, isn't it? Carbon gas. And so if you can imagine that as a person, and then imagine just that the gas is like emotion within that person. And then as you go through the day or as you go through your week, you're getting knocked along the way. You might even be getting dropped a bit. You might even be getting kicked along the way. And of course, with each event, there's an emotion. And what's happening inside this so-called individual is that all of the emotion is imploding inward. There's no outlet for it. Okay? So that eventually, what would happen if it continued to be shook and whatever constantly? It could reach a point where it might actually explode. And that wouldn't be terribly helpful or terribly useful. Now, if I can let it off slowly over a period of time, I can release that emotion and lessen the likelihood of a situation whereby a person would find themselves in an explosive mode, which wouldn't be terribly helpful or beneficial. I'm sure if you think about it, if you think back, you can probably think of an occasion in your own life whereby somebody or something was irritating you, or maybe annoying you, or actually causing you to be a bit angry. And in that situation, you simply exploded at them in such a way that your actions and behaviors were not in proportion to the actual event that was taking place. And you reflect back on it later thinking, why did I do that? And the likelihood is, a little bit like my demonstration in the bottle, that is only the straw that broke the camel's back. You know, if you trace it back, there will be other events building up to it. And then you have that final one, which might be trivial, might to people around seem insignificant, but it's the one that you explode with. I was travelling over a fortnight ago on the ferry to England, and where I was sitting, there was a group of a football team and their manager, aged 14, 15, and other people sitting around. There was this elderly lady, I'd say 70s probably, with her husband. And boys being boys, they were chatting and laughing or whatever. Nobody was paying particular attention to them, but at one point one of them let out one or two expletives. And this lady stood up, she was reading a book, she fired it down on the ground, and she began to chastise these kids who didn't know what the hell was happening. And she started saying things like, "You're not on the football pitch now, how dare you use that language here, you're a disgrace, your behaviour is just awful." And the manager wasn't actually with them at that moment in time, he'd gone away, but he then came back into the frame and was probably sorry he came back, because then he was being berated then for their behaviour. And I know the couple next to me, I heard them saying to each other, "What is this all about?" You know, it was just so out of proportion to what was actually going on. In fact, they were actually quite, as 15-year-olds go, they were relatively well behaved. But again, you can only imagine what it was that was going on for that lady back in time. Just to finish the story, I went down a little bit later to get a cup of tea, and the manager was in front of me in the queue. And this lady's husband walked up to him and tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Look, I just want you to know it was nothing to do with your boys." So he would have been aware of what had gone on in the past. So being able to express emotions on a regular basis is particularly useful and can be beneficial to our overall health and well-being. And the simplest way that we can do that would be to talk to friends, colleagues, loved ones on a regular basis. I know where I work, we have an open door policy, we're all on the one corridor. I would come in and out of my colleagues' office from time to day, to come into me, and we would talk about how we're feeling about different situations. Not with a view that they're in a position to fix anything for me. It's just, again, like the demonstration there, just to be able to express some of the emotions that I'm feeling, and not have them being suppressed and held back. Now, there may be certain instances where you might need to seek professional help in relation to exploring your emotions, in relation to particular problems, challenges or difficulties that you might be encountering. And one of the ways you could do that is by using the CSEAS, the Employee Assistance Service. You know, one, it's free to all civil servants, so that's useful to know. Secondly, you'd be dealing with professionals, and thirdly, confidential. And fourthly then would be that we would have the expertise to assist you in being referred onward and outward to specialist counselling, whatever it is that you might need.